and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Photo Chats with Nats. The sound effects may remind you more of a balmy summer evening, but here it is morning, so a very good morning to you. And I hope you're doing fabulously well. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Natalie. I'm a professional photographer based here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I love getting up close and personal with my subjects. And some of them may be really small, and this is what I'm talking about today. I want to look at one of the new lenses made by Fujifilm, and that is the XF30mm macro. So we're going to check that out, and then we're going to look at how that compares to another lens. And I will, see if this is maybe a lens that might be a lens for you. And as always, we'll also check out what my next episode will be all about. So let's dive right in. We're talking about the 30mm f2.8 macro lens that has been released at the end of last year together with the X-T5. And I have tested it a little bit and looked at what it can do. And first of all, let's have a look at how it looks. So there it is. It's really neat and compact, and it, shares the looks with other lenses, probably most resembling the 50mm f2, and it is, your familiar Fujifilm style, which is really nice. The most interesting or first thing that you see about it is that it's incredibly compact. It is for a macro lens, super tiny and fits really nicely on the X-T5. You can see the 80mm macro lens in the background in this image, and I will, look a little bit closer at that comparison a bit later. But it is just to illustrate how really, compact this lens is. If you know anything about macro photography, if you're into photography of that kind, and maybe you are shooting with the 80mm, you will appreciate why this is such a big deal. But first and foremost, it is a lens that produces high quality images that we are used to of Fujifilm prime lenses. Like I said, it was released together with the X-T5 last year, so it's really made for a 40 megapixel sensor and has beautiful resolving power. And so it is a wonderful lens. You get beautiful images with it. And when I started shooting with it, I took it to heart and did my thing, going up close and personal with subjects that I photographed. And as you can see, it produces beautiful results. It's very nice and sharp. And, at f2.8 you get nice creamy backgrounds with nice bokeh as well. So it's really, does its thing and lives up to its expectations when it comes to a Fujifilm lens. But it was actually only after I started shooting with it for a while that I realized, hold on a second, why is it a 30mm? And, what else can I do with it? And when I went out another day walking with friends of mine and I was shooting with the lens, I, realized that I can capture all of these different photographs just with one lens. So I can really tell the story without having to change lenses, especially when it comes to these close-ups. And then I realized this is really where the lens shines. And I started to loving it a lot more than I did in the beginning, because I was, like maybe many of you, when I first heard about it, a bit surprised of why Fujifilm releases such a focal length. But, after shooting with it for a bit, it became much clearer to me. And, I must say, I do really enjoy that a lot. So let's have a look at how it compares to another macro lens. And that macro lens, like I said, is the 80mm. So here I've got an image of you for you with the different lenses. I've got the 30mm in the middle here. And as I said, it's very compact, and you've seen the comparison in size already with the on the X-T5. The 80mm to the right of it is much bigger, as you can see. It's much bigger, wider, heavier, longer. And then just in comparison to focal lengths, the 35 f2 sits to the left of it. I'm not talking about that lens in particular, but I thought it's an interesting comparison because it's a similar focal length. So, you know, the 30mm is not all that much bigger. But I want to, you know, compare the 30mm to the 80 because of its macro capabilities. So these are images that I shot a while back with the 80mm macro lens, and you can see that, you know, I can really get in super close. The images are, you know, crisp, the colors are beautiful with nice contrast, and you can really go in super close and get beautiful detail with this lens. So compared in technical terms to the 30mm, like I said, the 80mm is much heavier. If you know the lens, if you felt it, if you shot with it, then you know what I'm talking about. It comes in at a hefty 750 grams. So that is really, even for someone who's used to working with heavy lenses, that's heavy. It's heavy and big, but it is a beautiful lens with a 25 centimeter minimum focusing distance, which is a great, you know, for shooting small subjects. It is image stabilized, which is at this, you know, at this weight and focal length really important. It produces beautiful creamy backgrounds, as you've seen, but compared to the 30mm, it is much less versatile. And, you know, the biggest thing about it that I wanted to point out is if you're really wanting to shoot tiny subjects like bees, for example, which I did a little while back in a project, you know, really telling a story about bees. It was important for me that I had that focal length because I was already having to get up really close, you know, and needed to, you know, do the thing to be protected from bees. So it was a little bit tricky to photograph them. And, you know, then in addition to that, I also had some lights, which I have removed for this image for, you know, demonstration purposes to see how close I actually had to get to these little critters to photograph them. And, you know, this is really where this lens shines. So if you were wondering, if I now have a 30mm that's much lighter and much more compact and so much more versatile, then why do I still need an 80mm? Well, this would be a good example why you would. And for, you know, argument's sake, and because I am talking about making photography simplified and maybe even shooting with one camera and one lens on this channel, I thought, let me compare it to the X100 series as well, because the minimum focusing distance of the lens on that camera is 10 mils, just like the 30 mil. So, you know, it does compare in a way. But at f2, the lens of the X100 series is not as sharp as the 30 mil. So, yay, 30 mil. And the X100 is also slower in focusing as is the 30mm. The 30mm is outstanding. It is super fast and snappy. The X100 series, though, is also extremely versatile, and you know, you don't only get a lens, you get a camera and a lens in that combo. So it's definitely, you know, it stands its ground and has, I think, a good reason to look at, because if you are looking at the images that I'm able to capture while not going out and capturing macro photography, you know, it does deliver really great results. So, you know, it's a good lens or camera lens combo to take into consideration. But let's have a look how it really compares. I took some sample shots to really show you how the 3 different lenses compare in the same scenario. And then I took a photograph of the minimum focusing distance of these lenses and how they compare to point out how important this may be to understand. So in the middle, we have the 80mm. On the very left, we have the images taken with the 30mm. And you can see that I, am super close to this little hippo of mine. And, this is not a problem when it's a still life and when it is something that just sits there. But if it's something like a bee or another insect or anything that doesn't enjoy you encroaching on its private space, that might be a bit of a challenge. So then the 80mm gives you a lot more room to work with that and a better chance of being able to capture small living organisms that want to be observed from a little bit of a distance. You can also see the difference between your field of view and the compression. You can see that the 80mm gives you much more of a compressed image, which could be a more pleasing result depending on what you are looking at. And then on the very right, the image taken with the X100, it does the job. It really does. Again, as you see in the image underneath, you have to get up really close in order to get this image. But, depending on what it is that you're looking for, this may be a really good alternative for you. So I hope this illustrates the point and the most important difference between especially the 30 and the 80mm. So is it a lens that you should consider for yourself? It is an absolutely wonderful lens, but as we always have to ask ourselves, do I need this lens? Well, it is really great because it is so extremely versatile. It produces wonderful images, and it is super compact and affordable. In addition to that, like all the newer Fujifilm lenses, it is also weather sealed, which comes in super handy. Should you buy it? Well, if you're into storytelling and if you're into shooting lifestyle and you want to be able to quickly change what you photograph, then this would be a super good lens for you to consider. And I also have that question in the comments. I will bring it up just now. Just give me a sec. So Thomas is asking if this could be one lens for all. And I think, yes, absolutely. It should definitely be considered as just one lens. I was talking about the 23 f2 the other day as if I only had one lens, which one would I choose? So this is a, competitor. It is a slightly different field of view. It is a slightly narrow focal length, which may or may not work for you. But if you often shoot on a 35 f2, or if this is a focal length that you enjoy, then this is definitely a lens that you consider. If you're looking for a dedicated macro lens, I would not necessarily recommend it, but for everything else that I highlighted here, it's definitely a wonderful contender for, my hobby of one camera, one lens. So yes, Thomas, I definitely think so, that, this is attractive in that regard. And that's all I have for you today already. If you have any more questions, you're more than welcome to shout my way. You can put your questions in the comments. If you're watching this broadcast as a recording, I will definitely get back to you. If you want to a little bit more about this lens, or maybe you want to know more about another lens, or maybe the X100 series, then hit me up in the comments and let me know what it is that you would like me to dive into a little bit more, and I will consider it and see what I can do with that. Because at the end of the day, these broadcasts are here for you. They are not meant to be a super technical comparison or review. There are plenty of people out there who have done a brilliant job about this lens. So YouTube is full of that. But I want to give a bit of food for thought and maybe share some slightly different angles and things that you could think about. And I hope you enjoy those chats. And I have another question here from Thomas. He is asking if it's as soft as the 23 f2 when it's shot wide open, and no, it isn't. It is a very sharp lens. I find it, extremely good, even wide open. So it does have that advantage over the lens, but it's really, I wouldn't necessarily compare it to the 23 f2 as such. But yeah, that's my take on this. It's not, the be-all and end-all of everything. But I hope I've given you a little bit of food for thought for today. And I will come back to you next Friday with another show. And in that show, I will be talking about film simulation recipes and what I think about them and why I use them and why I recommend you take a look into shooting with them as well, if you don't do that already. So if you don't want to miss this show, I recommend that you subscribe to this channel. And I'm going to remove this comment so that I can do this. And I would highly appreciate if you consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell, that you always get notified when I put out a new broadcast and add videos, so that you can stay in the know. And with that said, I will see you next Friday, again at 9 o'clock, live here on this channel, as always. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful week, shoot some beautiful photographs, and if you have any questions, remember to hit me up in the comments. Until then, stay awesome, shoot photographs, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye for now.